This is The Poet and the Poem from the Library of Congress. I am Grace Cavalieri, and we are on location with Kondwani Fidel, whose music is brought to us with a new album, and he has been called the best of Baltimore in Baltimore Magazine. So tell us a little bit about the music we just heard, Kondwani.
First of all, I just want to say thank you, Grace, for having me. It's a pleasure. Ever since I heard about you and your work a few weeks ago, I've just been a fan, and again, I'm just honored to be here. A little bit about The Mud Was Made for Us. I just wanted to do something different, opposed to my traditional, just a cappella spoken word. So I had linked up with a local band here in Baltimore. And they just like played me these instruments live. I just laid some stuff down. So, the content that lies within these poems is kind of standard, for the things that I talk about. The title, The Mud Was Made for Us, is kind of self-explanatory in a way. When it comes to the situations that we, face in life, right? Depending on our environment, depending on our race, depending on our gender, depending on, where we come from, there are problems in this world, that are just set out for us because of the way that this country and world is, it conditions people to, function, if that makes sense. And also, even when you look at the lotus flower, right? Like they have to go through certain stages of I guess like cruel, environments in order for them to become the beautiful flowers that we end up loving at the end of the process.
Oh, I love that. So the lotus coming from the mud is part of your inspiration.
Yes.
And how is it different writing words for the text and then writing for music? Did the music accompany your thoughts, or did you lay it down first and then have them add music to it? How did that work?
So first of all, it's three different types of writing in this world. Like writing for the page is one thing, like writing a cappella is another thing. But then like writing words to an actual instrumental is its own third thing. Right. And they're three separate entities. So there have been times where I've had, certain words written down and I kind of just, spat them over an instrumental. Right. And the way that I say it, might be influenced by the certain tunes and the certain keys and the certain strings, that's being played. And then sometimes, I just hear the instrumental and I, feel it, and I write like what I feel. So it's multiple things.
Very organic. Mike, let's hear a little bit more of his work, please. And this is from the Title EP album. I would like to say a little bit more about Kondwani because he is really making the news in Baltimore. And I think you got your undergraduate degree from Virginia State and your graduate from the University of Baltimore, which was your MFA in creative writing and publication, which is interesting. What do you think, how do you think that served you? Because there's so much controversy about MFA programs that they're just filling space up. What did it do? What do you think it did for you?
I would say it kind of taught me a little bit about the industry that I was trying to immerse myself in. First, when it comes to people analyzing and critiquing my work, some people just don't get it. That's just it, right? Like,
do they help you? Did any of them, did the criticism, I personally never valued much workshop criticism, but did any criticism actually change your creativity?
I would say that, yeah. So on one side of the spectrum is like it was just like it was an eye opener. Like, just people will not understand you, no matter how much you break it down, no matter how much you give to them, right? The people who get it will get it, and the people who won't get it, right? And then on the other side, me editing these poems, right? I would go to class and I would have these poems edited from all my classmates, right? And it was hard for me to read their work because I couldn't understand their experiences either, which was majority, stories coming from white people, right, that don't share the same experiences as me. So when we would go to class, right, and people would be like, oh my God, I love this. Oh my God, I love that. And I'm thinking like, do I not know how to read poetry? You know what I mean? Like, am I missing something? I can honestly say that I learned how to read poetry in my MFA program because I had went to my professor, Stephen Lever, and I was telling him like, yo, like, am I missing something? Because everybody else has, 2 minutes length worth of critiques, saying it aloud. And I'm like, why do I just, pick one word, another word? And I'm just all over the place. And, he basically told me you got to read poetry like line by line. Like, don't look at it as like this big overall thing that you're trying to tackle. He was like, you break it down line by line. Is this a good line? Is this a stellar line? Is this where the heat of the poem is? Is this line flat? So I kind of learned how to like read poetry, by not
that sounds valuable. I mean, that
yeah.
in itself. But you're telling us something very much more important, Kondwani. It is that our poetry comes from our experience.
Mm-hmm.
And you were sitting with people with very different experience from yours. And your heartfelt experience is so based in reality and the grit of humanity coming up into the light that it is just yours. It's inimitable. Can you give us a couple of poems that might be a cappella or verbal so that we can hear the soul of Kondwani Fidel?
Mm-hmm. So I have this one poem that I can recite for you all. How is it like a cap on the amount of time I have for the poems?
No, I think after 2 minutes, I would think 3 minutes would be as long as, do you have a 2-minute one?
Yeah, I have a 2-minute one.
Okay.
So it's this one poem that I have that's titled, it is titled Real Forever. And this is a piece that I have wrote for my friend D Dave, who got murdered in 2020. He had a rap album that he released called Real Forever. And he had asked me, to write an intro piece for the album. So I'm on the intro of the album. And, he ended up passing away. So this is one of the pieces that I put on my tape as well. The Mud was made for us just to like pay homage to him. So that's just like a little background. But I say, this is for everyone in my past who got lost in me or felt like they took a loss with me, claiming I ain't no different than the rest. My reply, I guess. And because I got too much pride, I add, if all men ain't nothing, I guess you got to settle with the one who tells the fewest lies. It's either my ambivalence or my innocence that kept me ignorant, thinking I belonged to you. I ain't read the syllabus. When we enrolled in this crash course, neither of us knew. We were warriors in the universe's task force. Perfect is my distant cousin. My journey's rigorous. And if I die before I wake, I want y'all to remember this. Here's my truth. I'm godly. I know what it feels like to sacrifice. I used to want to be in the light. Now I'm there before it arrives. Looking out for others helps me survive. Never been the type to play games. I ain't sorry. I don't put money over integrity. Y'all are killing me softly. Some days I just want to drink and sleep and be a straight up lazy guy. Some days I don't know how to process my feelings and I start fights with my lady. Some days I'm angry. Some days they call me crazy. Some days I mistake freedom for recklessness. I drag, I flex nonetheless. I created my own lane and I stuck with it. And y'all ain't got to bump with it. But this here is my open letter. And no matter if you love it or hate it, I'm going to be real forever. In the poem.
I understand why they call you, I think NPR said, one of the nation's smartest young Black voices. I would say one of the nation's smartest young voices. Really, you
Thank you.
go someplace where there's a wound. Your poetry is a context to a wound, a national wound. What is that wound, Kondwani?
I would say, just growing up in, a community that valued hip hop music, you know, just hearing those truths, from rappers in New York or Louisiana, places that, for me growing up in Baltimore, I wouldn't even be able to point out on a map, the United States, but it was people there who were sharing these same experiences, right, that I was going through. And these songs, this music was helping raise me, right? Like it taught me valuable lessons that, people probably didn't teach me in my household or on my block or in schools, right? So, when I came across reading and writing when I was an undergrad at Virginia State, right, I kind of just was mimicking what the people that I looked up to as a kid did, right? And I was just sharing their truths, right? I wasn't looking at it like, oh, I got these big ideas about race or poverty. I'm literally just sharing experiences.
That is so interesting because you aren't actually doing hip hop. You're doing a hip hop with a lyric so that yours is elevated. I think in my mind, it has a little more musicality to it. The hip hop is more staccato, but you have more added a poetic phraseology to yours. So you're a hip hop poet. I don't know what to call you, but we're so proud that you're among us. You're Baltimore's best, born and bred in Baltimore and based in Baltimore. This is the poet in the poem. We're talking to Kondwani Fidel. Your name alone should make you famous. It's perfect. It's a beautiful name.
Thank you.
And you also write nonfiction. And what triggered this book? What made you want to sit down for the long marathon of writing every day? What were you burning to say? What is the title of the book?
So the title is The Anti-Racist: How to Start the Conversation About Race and Take Action. And 2020, the pandemic, it just kind of made it hard for me to write, dealing with just the state of the world, losing out on gigs, which meant like losing out on money, losing out on places, that I would usually seek refuge in, like going to coffee shops, like my whole world was shut down. And it was hard for me to write, but I got the opportunity to, write a book, about the state of the world right now. And this is just how I chose to tackle that. In this book, it's the epicenter of it is about Baltimore, and the experiences that Black people face here in this country, right? And as I was writing this book, I was thinking, how can I teach people who come from my community about these ideas and what's going on, right? It's like this saying that say that somebody can be standing too close to an elephant, right? Which means that if you're too close to the elephant, you can't see the full elephant.
Wow.
Right? And you got so many people like myself, at one point where I got arrested for things that I didn't do growing up, right? Because of, the racist, police strategies in Baltimore, but I never knew what mass incarceration was, right? Like I knew that, it was several people in my life who fell victim to drug abuse, right? But I didn't know that it was a health crisis, right? So it's like just teaching people about the things that go on in these communities so they can see what's, they can see how and why these realities were created.
Wow, you are saying something so important that gives us new clarity and understanding. You're saying that when you're in it, you really can't understand it, that it takes someone to objectify it for you, that when you're in it, you really can't decipher it. I think that is so important. You have said something really important today. Can we hear a page or something from your book?
Yes, absolutely. So this is from an essay that I wrote called "My Home is a Noiseless Gun," and it's the last essay in the book, but it's just a piece that just pays homage to my neighborhood, the people who come from it, because I know a lot of times, just again, the way that this country is set up, whiteness has always been a center of, television and books, so this is just a piece that, that just pays homage to the people who come from neighborhoods like Baltimore, and just like owning who we are, like that good, that bad, that ugly, right? And saying like, hey, we laugh, but we cry too. Like, hey, we beautiful and we ugly too. Like we are all of these things, right? And I start off with this quote by James Baldwin, where he says, our crown has already been bought and paid for. All we have to do is wear it. My home is a noiseless gun. For the woman in my neighborhood who wore pink and blue hair when the whole world called it ghetto. For the young men who got face tattoos and gift wrapped their teeth with gold and diamonds before it was trendy, when people pinned it as unprofessional, gang-related, and ghetto. For the ones who wheelie pedal bikes through traffic and were called reckless instead of being held for their talent. For all of the young Black pioneers who are brave enough to wear their hoods on their back and rep their cities like gangs, despite the world's criticism. For the ones who have been a leading scorer on setting pop culture trends, but don't get the credit from mainstream media. Not that they want it nor seek it, but it should be known. This is for y'all. This is for us. Majority of my childhood and well into my teenage years, my grandmother, along with other friends and family who belong to my community, often told me, I don't want you to end up like them. Them who pocket pistols in preparation for civil wars among their neighbors, who fail math in school but know numbers when a brick of coke is involved. Them with hunchbacks who stand as if the world were glued to their shoulder blades, whose mean mugs be 2-ton, who have deep stories of anger loaded in their laugh lines. Them with mile-long mouths who scream after police as they bend corners and squat cars. Them who stay within a 3-mile radius of where they live until they die, who only attend church for funeral services, but inscribe Bible scriptures in ink and blood on their bodies. Them who collect baby mamas like tennis shoes, who stand on blocks for hours and crack jokes, crack open bottles, slang crack jars when someone cracks slick. Them who rock cruddy fades tall enough for 5 heads. Them who say Baltimore instead of Baltimore. If you ain't none of them, then you're guilty by association, my grandmother strongly believed. My grandmother wanted to make sure that I could be as little of them and as much American as possible, because the more American I was, the more I'd be ready for the real world, meaning I believe the white world, because obviously I wouldn't be successful at life if I wasn't one of them. And that's just an excellent.
What year did you write that?
I wrote this, this probably was, I want to say maybe 2019.
And no one put it up for an award?
Nah.
That, don't laugh at that. That essay absolutely is riveting. The repetition, the anaphora, the phraseology, that thing is a poem. Honestly, I am deeply moved. I am moved to tears. That if every other chapter in the book is like that, that book better be read by everybody. Is it, who is buying it? Who's reading it?
So again, ever since the book came out, I've been doing a lot of school visits, both in Baltimore and, majority Baltimore in the DC area. But I also did like some Zooms and stuff in New York and in PA, and it's been getting read on all levels, from middle school, high school to the college level. From undergrad to grad. So I definitely believe that it's doing the work that it's supposed to be.
What I like the most is that you have created a grandmother who we did not know before, has never been written about before, but who will live forever. You have a grandmother, you have drawn a picture of a woman who we now know and was back, she's off stage. She's in the wings of your life, but oh, wow. I love her. Was she successful?
Yeah. So I actually was fortunate enough to be raised by 3 grandmothers. So my grandmother, on my mother's side, that's the one who adopted me when I was a baby. That's the one that raised me in her home. My grandmother, Gail, that's my father's mother. And she also, I would spend time over there some summers or weekends or whatever. She played a large role in my life. And then her mother, my great grandmother, Grandma Virginia, was around, all the way up until she passed away when I was in high school. So I was fortunate enough to, be raised by, some strong Black women. And, a lot of what I write about is like paying homage to them. If I explicitly mention or if I don't explicitly mention it, because I'm always talking about, the cloth that I'm cut from.
I really like that a lot because my mother used to say, marry a man who loved his mother. And I would say to the world, marry a man who loved his grandmother,
Yeah.
because they'll treat you well. And I am so excited about your career because I think you're getting noticed. Do you believe you're getting noticed?
Yeah, I believe that I'm getting noticed. I just try to just stay grounded in that aspect. It's this Dave Chappelle and Maya Angelou interview, and Dave Chappelle was asking, Maya Angelou, like, how does she deal with fame? And this isn't by far saying that I have any type of level of fame that either one of them has, but she said this quote. She said something on the lines of, if you don't pick it up, you don't have to worry about putting it down. Right. So she's basically like, if you just, accept what type of praise and what type of love and what type of feedback that you want, then you won't have to be scrambling and worrying what to do with it. Just always stay grounded. Like, remember why you started, you know what I mean? Remember who you're doing it for, for me, again, I just want to just give people from my community just options, you know what I mean? Just options that they probably wouldn't be afforded, without coming in contact with my work. And also just being, I just want to be one of, the greatest writers. Like, I don't want to be number one. I don't care about being the top 100. I just want my voice and my stories to, transcend, long after I'm here.
Well, you're like a tree that keeps reaching up, but your roots are in your community, aren't they? Your
Yeah.
roots will always be in your community. You will always speak for those people you grew up with. And do you know all of the people you grew up with now?
Not everybody, but it's still, I still keep in contact with a lot of people. I still hang out with them.
You're a professor now. What do
Yeah.
you teach at Coppin State?
So right now I'm teaching English 102. I'm teaching creative writing 2. And I'm also teaching this course that I created called Introducing Black Artistic Expressions, where we're going to be exploring, clearly literature, but also, different forms of new media like radio, podcasts, just to show students, again, the options that are available out here of the various ways that you can tell your story.
Listen, the Black culture has been the leader of all fashion, style, music, language in America. Everything we have done has been the crest of the wave of the Black imaginators. So if you're letting that be known in your classes, I think that's a really valuable thing to know. And I think you enjoy it, right? Do you enjoy teaching?
I do. I really do. It's just good. Like, cause I know when I was at Virginia State freshman year, my English professor is the reason that, made me fall in love with reading and writing, because of the work that, he was teaching in the classroom. And, I went from a sport management major to changing my major to English second semester sophomore year, and graduating, on time with a BA in English, right? So, and look at me now, right? And so it's like, I know that these students don't hate reading like they say, they just hate it probably with their teachers in the past was forcing them to read. So I just want to be that same, vessel that Professor Arnold Westbrook was for me at Virginia State.
I hope he hears that. We'll have to send him the podcast. Well, it is just such fun to talk to you because you have such energy and enthusiasm. May I ask how old you are?
I'm 28.
Oh, so you're still in your 20s.
Yeah.
That's kind of the zenith, isn't it? To be young and vigorous and energetic and talented. So read us one more a cappella poem and explain what a cappella is, please.
Yeah, so a cappella is just with no instrumental behind it, no music, no beat, just the words themselves. This poem is called Love Is Not Enough. I came up with the title of this poem. I was listening to a Kendrick Lamar song called Love, and in it he said, I would rather for you to trust me than to love me. And I was thinking, like, if love is this universal word that people say will stop all the problems in the world, it'll stop war, we need more love. And I was like, why would you want somebody to trust you more than you want somebody to love you? Then I started thinking about, people in my life that I love, but necessarily don't trust, right? Or as people that will use the word love as a scapegoat to hurt, right? Like they are mentally, physically, spiritually, abuse you, but then turn around and be like, oh, but I love you. And it's like, well, that ain't enough. Like what do you, are you being careful with me? Like, are you honest to me? Do you, are you being truthful with me? You know what I mean? So this is just a piece to highlight that, we need to just use more words than saying I love you. Because if you ask 100 people what love means to them, you probably gonna get 100 different answers. So this is Love Is Not Enough. You see, I don't know much about love, but I know that in some cases, love is not enough. Love will have you chasing waterfalls and deserts. Love will have you flipping through the pages of an empty book looking for its definition. Love doesn't always equal loyalty. I understand why Kendrick said, keep it 100, I'd rather you trust me than to love me. Because what is love if the trust ain't there? Who cares about being locked in a room with him if there's always a fuss in there? You see, love will have you. Love will hold you. Love will choke you, then turn around and attempt CPR without a certification. Love is an ice pick, it will poke you. Love is a pistol, it will smoke you. Love ain't always sweet like Smuckers, but it'll jam you up. That joint will toast you. Or you think you got jokes, man, love will roast you. Love will have you crying 75 miles an hour to your mother at 2 a.m. in the rain with tears dripping down your chin, cognac on your breath, phone glued to your ear, red Solo cup in your right hand while you gripping the steering wheel with your left. And mommy is on the other end asking repeatedly, baby, are you okay? And you can't respond because your cries are a monsoon, choking on a mixture of tears and spit, stuck in a three-way love affair. Do you take the bottle to the neck, crash the whip, or slit your wrist? Your family arrive at your peephole. They don't understand that your doorbell is only broken because your heart is. You landed the leading role. It got shaky on set. Now you don't even know what your part is. Mine missing. You don't even know what smart is. Your friends trying to get through your line, but you press ignore. Because if you tell them why you in your feelings, they going to judge you as if they never been in love before, as if they were never on drugs before, as if they ain't human, as if they ain't never been bugged before. Love will leave you broken, screaming, Alexa, play Death Around the Corner by Tupac Shakur. Alexa, play Madonna, Love Don't Live Here Anymore. Alexa, play DMX Slipping Because I'm Falling and I Can't Get Up. Alexa, play a Baltimore Love Thing by 50 Cent. I'd rather use Pinky Nail to. Alexa, please play Cupid by Sam Cooke. Love was born a bullet. I'm hit in shock trauma. I'm shook. Alexa, it seemed like you the only God I know who answer me on demand. Alexa, why love ain't got no do right? I've been fighting all my life, but what happens when your knuckles used to rearrange jaw lines? Now your bones crack when you whisper. Alexa, I just want my Cinderella and glass slipper. Why is love the game of the century? I ain't no Bobby Fischer. Love is not enough. Part of it. Thank you.
Kondwani, Fidel. How do you remember that how do you memorize that and not fear that you'll mess it up?
I always fear that I'm going to mess it up. And sometimes I do, but you just got to make it look good and just the hardest part is just being confident. Like, cause you sometimes you're just going to mess up and there's nothing that you can do about it.
You didn't skip a beat there. You didn't skip a beat there. 2 a.m. in the rain, 2 a.m. in the rain. That was put to music. Put to music.
Yeah.
As we go out, you have one more piece, short or long, to leave with the audience before we go.
I do. So I'm going to do this one poem that I wrote. All right. So, all right, here we go. I hug my mornings tight and share a cup of coffee with her, because it might be my last time seeing her, might not kiss her again. And I dap up the end of my long nights and say we made it before I head to bed. If pillows could talk, they have a myriad of stories regarding abandonment. Heavy heads that used to apply pressure to feathers are now scars of the pavement. I remember I used to get on my knees and write stick figures on the concrete with chalk. And it feels like 3 to 5 business days later, the streets was taking the same dudes who once played the sidewalks, getting embraced and traced by chalk lines. Seems like every time I check my watch, nothing but dark times, I be like, where the sun at? We went from hide and go seek to compete. This is where I keep the gun at. Run with all the wrong guys, hit a dead end and realize ain't nowhere else to run at. When the devil pull up on you, them sins, you better run them. The desert eagle, they call it Kid Cudi because the birds be humming. You die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become a villain. No turning back. The monstrous ways, you gotta keep them coming. Bane gotta die with that name. He can't revert to Antonio Diego. They say if you live by the gun, you gotta die by the Draco. Y'all adopted the mud. I was born in and molded by it. I didn't see the light till I was a man. Darkness had me guided, blinded, and narrowed my horizon, but provided skin thick enough to withstand severe climates. I trekked through the tornado. I stay on the move, just call me a Winnebago. Small cities produce the biggest hearts, so you know how we coming. Mustard seed of faith, scars the size of pumpkins. Foolish to think that I could cover scabs with scriptures, like revealing the world my body ain't a part of my hobby. I never act like my stuff don't stink. I never act like I ain't on the brink of a war with the young boy trapped in my body that still cries for movie dates with his father and mommy. I let y'all hear the hymns from a caged bird. My poetry made a numb soul feel human again. I guess the mission was served. Thank you.
The unforgettable voice of Kondwani Fidel. This is the poet and the poem from the Library of Congress. The program is produced by Forest Woods Media Production, post-production by Mike Turpin, MET Studios. We want to thank the Library of Congress for making the program possible. Funding is provided by the Sinipit Fund, Ravada Foundation, Avi De Shishani, and Sandy Jackson Cohen. Our engineer is Mike Turpin. I'm Grace Cavalieri.